funny.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the MSP Water Cooler featuring Robert Gillette and Scofie. And for the second episode in a row, our special guest, Jeffrey Newton of the MSP Insider Show and SIP.ai. Yeah, we got a great crew today. And today's a special episode because we are continuing a conversation that was teased 2 weeks ago in our last water cooler session. But before we get started, thanks, Robert, Jeffrey, for being here. How you guys doing? How you feeling about today's topic?
I probably feel the same way every MSP feels that Eddie described, knowing that I was coming back to this conversation. Like the anticipation of this discussion was just like, it haunted me in the best way possible, but it haunted me.
Oh, man, I love it. I love it. Robert, how do you feel about it?
I'm physically trying to restrain myself because I'm so passionate about this subject.
Yeah. It's like the old cartoons with like, let me at him, hold Robert back. Is that what that's the image that conjures to my mind? All right. If this is your first time to the MSP water cooler, this is our shameless excuse to huddle around a virtual water cooler and just talk shop in the MSP space from the vantage point of growth, sales, business development, marketing, revenue. What does it actually look like tangibly, practically to build revenue in your IT services business? And though we've got incredible experts here today, it's really all about you. So if you are watching this live on LinkedIn or YouTube, or you're watching the recording back in the future, we want to feature you. And not only do we want to feature you through just you commenting and engaging, we actually want to drag your butts virtually onto this stage and have you ask us some heavy-hitting, hard questions. So Eddie Darmawan of D1 Defend 2 weeks ago set us up for our first question of the day. And we're going to dig into that here in a second. And Robert and Jeffrey were just teasing a little bit about how excited we are for today's opening question. But if you're watching this, we want to hear from you. So what you need to do is either drop a comment, ideally on LinkedIn or YouTube, with your question. Try and stump us or challenge us. Or if there's something that you've been wrestling with in your IT services business, do not be shy. Share. And then if you have a comment or an observation or your own personal experience you want to share, we want to hear that as well. Additionally, we'd love to bring you on screen. So I'm dropping on LinkedIn a StreamYard link, and anybody who stumbles across this is welcome to join us. In fact, we have a gentleman who just joined us backstage, and I'm really excited to bring him out. So this is how it's going to work. Phil, I see you backstage. What I want you to do is think of a question or scenario or an observation you have, drop it as a comment on the LinkedIn live stream, and then we will pull you on screen after we address the first question and have you ask your question, and then we'll discuss as a group. We'll kick you off and we'll discuss as a group. So glad you all are here. All right, Eddie's statement at the end of our episode, and it was like a big old bomb he dropped right at the end 2 weeks ago. It was such a tease because every one of us has strong opinions on this, and we had less than 60 seconds to address it, so we just didn't. We decided to tackle it today. Eddie Darmawan, if you're watching, this is for you, and everybody else, this is what he said. Outbound sales for MSPs just doesn't work. He said, this is something I've been discovering. Outbound sales for MSPs just doesn't work. All right. I'd like each of us to take a first pass at this question or this statement by Eddie, but I want you to do it just from like 10,000 foot overview, and then let's peel back the onion and dig in a little bit more. Okay. So I nominate Robert to take a first crack.
I thought you wanted to talk later because that's like it's letting a pool shark get the break. You're not going to play. No, my 30,000 foot view on this is hurt people, and I'm so sorry someone's hurt you in the past, because I mean, look, this is how I've made my money. We coach like 40 companies right now that are all doing exactly what you say doesn't work, and I'm so sorry it hasn't worked for you in the past. It breaks my heart a little bit.
All right. Yes. Hurt people. And that's the experience some folks have had. We don't have Sam today playing producer, so I'm messing around with StreamYard trying to make us look better. And,
just make us all the same size. It's fine.
Yeah. We'll roll with this for now. Jeffrey, all right. 30,000 feet.
Yeah, I'll steal from Robert in that I was a hurt person and I was a bit more masochistic, so I just leaned into the pain before figuring it out. So I used to believe that outbound does not work until I realized that that was a me problem and not an outbound problem, and figured out how to change everything. And then we ended up booking like just under 500 grand in MRR over the next 4 years doing it. So like I know from firsthand experience, one, the pain Robert's talking about, and two, how to do it in a way that actually produces the results that you're chasing.
Love it. I love that summary overview. I'll take a crack at it as well. What I want to start off as a preface is like Eddie and everybody else who has been hurt and had these experiences. You're not alone. You're not crazy. There's legitimate reasons why you've had the experiences you've had. And I understand why that can be the perception. And my hope for today is that on the other side of it, we either at the very least challenge that in a way that you feel is approachable, and hopefully even better, feel empowered to go out and take control of this very viable path for growing revenue in your IT business. And there I just laid my cards out. It is a viable path. Though I think anyone watching can read between the lines and understand. I think all of our cards are on the table right out of the gate. We all I think agree on this. But anyways, so Robert, hurt people, and this is why a lot of MSPs come to this conclusion. Why do people get hurt in these experiences, Robert? And how do we do this without getting hurt?
Yeah, and you'll have to tell me if you can still hear me because my internet seems to be struggling. But
you're good.
I think what happens is people spend an incredible amount of time and money doing a thing, and then it has different outcomes than they want, and they don't know why. And people say it's them, and then they don't know how to fix it. And then it just creates this loop of negativity and frustration that leads to big emotions and big feelings, because people are wasting valuable time and money trying to accomplish a thing, and they don't know why it's not working. And the only answers they can get are, well, give me money and I'll tell you.
I think that's really true. They see this idea of business development as leads, as sales opportunities, as this problem in the business, this obstacle holding them back from their goals and objectives. And so problem, solution, they hear about all the different ways people in their industry have gotten leads before, or maybe not in their industry, just in business in general. This is how you go get customers, right? And so they try a thing. They throw mashed potatoes against the wall, hoping something will stick. And, how you throw those mashed potatoes turns out to be really important. So, but if you don't know, if you've never done it, you've not really dug in and taken ownership of it, it's really easy to see how you can try some stuff and come to the conclusion that that stuff you tried does not work. But in fact, maybe the implementation, the ownership, and how you went about it was not there. So,
Yeah.
Jeffrey, what's your take on this?
Oh my God. How to add value to what you guys already brought. To me, the thing that I had to figure out quickly was that I said it was a me problem. And what I meant by that is like, it was a mindset problem. It's actually the balance between what you and Robert just said, which is the reason I even bolted Outbound on is because I needed more leads. And I thought that more leads would be more business. And then the other piece to that was growth should just be easy, right? Because I had sort of mastered the art of inbound working and built a whole sales process that was crushing it off inbound, but we had a marketing team. All that changed, and now I had to supplement not getting the leads to begin with. And so I had this whole like cold calling doesn't work mentality or outbound doesn't work mentality because I'd tried different things in the past, not naming any names, and it all sucked and it didn't work. And so like it was a preconceived notion to just write it off as if it didn't work versus really leaning into the work that I was avoiding to begin with and figuring out why it wasn't working. And the closer I got to it, the more apparent it became as to why it wasn't working, because I would be slamming the phone back down on half the stuff that was, going on. And so it was really getting insanely close to it, shouldering the burden more than I wanted to, and learning how to build really messaging that met that individual where they were, because it was a totally different level of like the awareness pyramid and all these other things. There was so much psychology built into where I was meeting them versus where they were meeting me. One really maybe quick mindset shift that I had was I should have prepped my iPad. I could draw it for you, but it is what it is. Here we are. When you have, let's just call it outbound cold calling appointments, right? The prospect is coming to that conversation with a totally different objective than the way most MSPs show up to that conversation. What do I mean by that? MSPs, because we want leads and we want growth, we really want to close the account, which means you want a contract. And we're so eager to try to order take them in the first phone call about give me the contract versus understanding that one, if it was outbound driven, they're at a totally different place trying to understand how to solve the problem that they have. And they're really just coming there for information or education or awareness or validation in some cases. And yet those two predefined and unspoken objectives sets the first call up for failure. And so no wonder your first time appointment feels like a dentist appointment and, leaves you feeling like outbound doesn't work at all. And that was the first thing we had to fix.
I definitely appreciate that experience that you had when you're talking about the psychology of the buyer, and the buyer shows up with a certain set of expectations, and you, the IT provider, as the seller, shows up with goals and objectives. And obviously you desperately want the sale, you desperately want the contract, and you want the revenue. It's hard not to come in and impose your agenda on the situation. But I want to just take a second to appreciate if you're an IT provider, like it is different. Like what you do in your industry is different than a lot of transactional types of selling markets that are out there. You don't sell a widget or a gadget, pizzas or shoes or a SaaS product I can add to cart and check out. IT services is not something that the typical buyer just casually goes browsing for on the weekends. So if you show up like buy from me and they show up like, I don't even know what this is or why I should care, big surprise that there's a little bit of dysfunction between the buyer and seller in this world. So I want to hear from anyone who's watching right now. If you run an IT business or have run an IT business and you've experienced these encounters, what's your experience been? Did you find a solution? What things did you try that failed? Don't be afraid to let us know, because somebody watching will get value from your experience, and we'd love to discuss it. So, Robert, I want to throw this over to you, and then I know we've got Phil in the wings waiting to ask his question. So here we are, 15 minutes. I think let's roll on this particular topic for another 5 to 10. And I know we could spend the whole damn hour on this. It's tempting to just do that. But I'm desperate to hear what Phil's question is as well. So, Robert, this perceived delta between the buyer and the seller in IT services as it relates to business development, cold outreach specifically, how do we bridge that?
Yeah, I think Jeffrey led into it really well because such a big deal. If you've built a business off of referrals, it's the equivalent of feeding yourself with fully cooked steaks. Someone brought it to the table. You just had to not choke on it. And that's it. Some people still choke on it. But like when you say, oh, I close 90% of the people that I get in the room with, like, yeah, you should. Congratulations. That's about right. And that's because someone has done the hard work of identifying they have a problem, making that their top priority, and then they've taken the initiative to go search for a solution, and you happen to be one of those potential solutions. When you do outbound prospecting, you're at the very tip of that. You're talking to people that maybe don't know they have a problem. They haven't done any research, and they haven't selected you as a potential solution. And so it's the equivalent of getting a steak from the store. And like you don't just bring it home and eat it. Like you have to prep it and, you know, season it and cook it. And then maybe if you're not going to eat it right now, you got to put it in the fridge. Like there's a whole thing that has to happen before the eating of the steak. And so I think that's the biggest problem that I see when people are trying to begin in that transition from some type of owner-led sales, whether it be referrals in, or even if they've grown their business substantially to like the $3, $4, $5 million mark, and they want to bring in a sales team. It's your process and everything about your MSP, from how you bring them in and convince them to give you money and then onboard them and serve them, is built off of the idea that the hard work is already done. They already know they need help and they came to you. And then there's already a level of trust and desperation built in. And if you're doing outbound prospecting, outbound kind of like sales work, you have to find a way to help them through that. Otherwise, you're not dealing with the same type of meat, to stretch the metaphor. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I'm going to steal that from you, Robert, because I love that analogy so much of like everybody wants the juicy steak on their plate. Everybody loves the experience of this gourmet, delicious thing I get to enjoy. And in business growth, that's a closed deal. And frankly, the easiest part of sales is taking the bite out of the prepared steak. And everybody thinks of sales being measured in bites and the experience of closing business. That's sales. And that is arguably the least important and easiest piece of the experience. Man, I'd go a step farther. It's not even necessarily going to the grocery store. It's like sourcing the cow, right? Which farm?
Yeah, I didn't want to do the slaughter thing, but you're right.
Yeah. No, man. But like that, the idea of the visceral work required to go out and find a new customer. Now, I want to add on to this. I want, as we wrap up this section of the discussion, I want to leave the viewers with something really, really practical. And Jeffrey, you made a comment earlier, and I'm going to kind of tag on to it about mindset. And I'm going to encourage IT providers to adjust their mindset and perspective of the idea of business development to begin with. If I had a nickel for every time I saw on the forums people in the same breath saying business development, marketing, and sales as though they're all the same thing, trying to do the same thing, I'd have way too many nickels. The work of business development is not necessarily to like get you straight to the bite, straight to the steak on the plate. I consider it an exercise in building mind share and awareness with your ideal customer, earning another micron of mental real estate. Because right now, your cold prospect, because let's reframe it, cold outreach is where this conversation started from, cold outreach for sales. Like your customer has no idea. They couldn't be colder. They couldn't be colder. So that first phone call to say, hey, I want to take a bite. And they're like, what the heck are you talking about? Who are you? You're like, I want to take a bite out of your cow. That's a huge ask on a cold call, man. That's a huge ask. You're going to have to find the absolute needle in the haystack where all the stars have aligned, where they're like, actually, it's funny you called. My MSP just pissed me off, and I'm so ready to leave them. Give me a contract this afternoon, and I will be yours. Does that happen? Sure, it has happened. But that's not the basis by which you build a business development motion. So
Mhm.
if your expectations out of cold outreach are, we do X and it results in Y, though you have nothing behind you in terms of data, experience, process by which to have that calculation be accurate, you are setting yourself up for significant disappointment. So it
Mhm.
starts with who's your customer and laying down a framework by which you are going to consistently, systematically, and faithfully engage them.
Hmm.
Okay. That is my just little primer on where to start. But I want Jeffrey, because you literally did this in your MSP, took ownership of the cold outreach component.
Yeah.
Give our viewers something incredibly practical where they could go like this month and the rest of October to start laying down the bedrock for an cold outreach initiative to be successful this year and in 2026.
Yeah, I would say the most pivotal change once we know who we're calling and why we're calling them check boxes were checked was understanding the expectations for that first time appointment, the first call, right? The very first thing we did was strip that back from being a 30-minute ask, to your point about how big of an ask it was to take a bite out of their cow. So we just changed that from a 30-minute commitment to 15, first of all. So the ask was much less, which increased the yeses a lot, which gave us a lot more at-bats. In those meetings really became one purpose only. The outcome of the meeting was not to ask them how many users they had and click on my quote generator and send them a quote. The goal was to have a conversation with one single outcome with an expectation set up front to figure out if and how we can help you, right? Like it's almost changing it to a push away offer up front where like I'm here in this meeting, you said yes to it. I know you don't say yes to everyone that calls you. So clearly there's a need. It's my job to figure it out. And through the course of doing so, we're going to figure out if I can help you or MSP. And if so, we'll set up another conversation to really dive into how. But we really have to get to the core of why me and why now. That's the path to figuring out if and how. And it's those two simple questions. Like you're in this call with me, but like why with me? And then why now? Most of the time they're going to answer the why me before they go the why now. You pin them down to the why now. Now you understand the actual doorway that you need to walk through for the rest of your conversations, and you just take them down the journey. I say that with the second bullet point of this outbound motion fits into a box that's like 3 boxes, but it's the percentages are roughly, Robert can correct me, he's probably got closer percentages, but the whole concept of the outbound motion is to be able to determine the market's in one of 3 camps. They're either non-buyers or they're buyers. And then you subdivide the buyer category into the buy now and buy later. Most people, most sales teams will forever ignore the buy later group, which is where 80% of the gold sits. And the other ones are just looking for what you described, Robert, which is like the people, and Escofi, you did too, the people that are just waiting to take that bite because the MSP sucks already. So it's a process of qualifying and classifying quickly, building trust fast, and then having the right conversation in that first time appointment versus how many users do you have? And here's my quote.
Incredibly practical observation. We have a comment on this from Alex Boots in the chat. I want to drag it on screen. Alex, when I ran my MSP, I never once had a filet mignon. Always had to go hunt and kill and get my strip steak. Never knew another way. Yeah, so another man from the trenches. Appreciate that. You're not alone in that, Alex. That's a really practical take, Jeffrey. Robert, leave our viewers with something practical. Like what's a place that, build on what Jeffrey said or something that maybe Jeffrey left out. Like if you're an MSP and you got this experience and I want to do something about it, what do I do next?
Yeah, do something always. So that's just do something and always do it without fail. Like you pay your taxes or your employees. Like just find something and do it. And to just pound home Jeffrey's point, like if on a scale of 1 to 100, 1 is the day they just signed a contract with their new provider, and 100 is the day before they sign the next one. You only have an opportunity for a first-time sales meeting from like 82 to 92. Like anything before that, you're too early. Anything after that, and they're already evaluating another vendor. And so how do you, like, if you want marketing leads, that's 82 to 92. But there's this whole 1 to 82 where there's an incredible amount of value. And so I think of it like a little secret garden. Like your database is like a little garden. And in that garden is all the food you're going to use to feed your family. Well, how maintained is that garden? Is it overrun with weeds? Do you know where the pears are and where the carrots are? Or do you just stumble into it once every quarter when you need food and go, ah? It's, you know, like, and that's how a lot of people approach sales. And so this idea of saying like, hey, I've got a little garden. I know exactly what's in it. It's well maintained. I know that where the, you know, this fruit is at least 6 months out. This one might come this week if I'm lucky. And just maintaining your database like that, even if it's 10 people or 100 people or 100 companies or 10 companies or 1,000 companies you might work with, the ability to harvest from that will be directly proportional to how well it's maintained and how big it is. And so that's what I would just encourage you is like, if you had that garden and you were hoping to get money from it or food from it soon, how are you maintaining it? What are you doing to have a compounding interest of information that's accurate and not overrun by weeds? And like, you know, to really push the metaphor, I've had times in my career where I went to go visit my garden after neglecting it and found rotting food all on the ground because it just waited too long. I just waited too long. I wasn't paying attention and I got wrapped up in what I was doing. And so part of this do something always is like thinking about managing your little garden. We want sales guys to be hunters, killers. And I understand that. But I also like the idea of thinking about them as farmers. They're going to go out every morning. They're going to put on their overalls. They're going to grab their tools at the break of dawn, and they're going to go out and they're going to work the field all freaking day. And then they're going to turn around sweaty and tired and go, God, I hope something grows here. And then and they're going to do that every single day. And they're going to know their land. And they're going to know where the stuff is going to come from and when it's ready. And then they're going to have a harvest, and it's going to be great. So that's really something I just want to encourage people. Do something always.
Robert's killing it with the analogies today. Absolutely love the garden analogy. Yeah, man, if you're hiring a salesperson and you're expecting them to be the hunter that's going to kill and bring the food home, but you're an MSP, and if you've had a meeting with me, I've probably heard you say your average time to close is 60 to 90 days. It's a heck of a lot of pressure to put on that hunter you just put in there, right? Right out of the gate. It's like, oh yeah, go kill something this month. And if you haven't by the end of this month, I'm questioning the value of our relationship. Like, oh man, maybe you're thinking about this wrong. Maybe it's a garden. Maybe it's not a hunt. But I think the key takeaway in either scenario is the do something always is the work. And this is, as we wrap up, and we're going to bring Phil on for his question. I just want to say, if I was going to, so Jeffrey and Robert both gave some very practical things for you to take away. I'm going to say the tough love piece. Okay. Nothing that Robert, Jeffrey, or I have said today is exactly new or revolutionary. I mean, we've each in our own careers had those moments where the light bulb went off. We were like, oh, I get it. I see it. I understand. But if there was one thing I think that's going to separate the entrepreneurs and business owners who have goals and the rest of you who have a fantasy of a growing MSP business, it is going to be those who take ownership and responsibility for figuring this out. And Jeffrey, I never ran an MSP myself, so I'm going to use Jeffrey's example that he shared, and you can speak to it briefly as we wrap up. But like he's told his story where they tried some stuff, and they walked away with less than impressed with the results. And when did it change, Jeffrey? When did it change?
Yeah, when I leaned into the work that I was avoiding.
Oh, can you say that again? I think my internet cut out.
Yeah, we had all changed the moment that I made the decision to lean into the work that I had been avoiding the whole time. I wanted the outcome. It was disjointed at best. And it wasn't until I created the space and forced it to happen and just leaned in to figure it out. Because at the end of the day, the majority of us at MSPs, we are innate problem solvers to begin with. It is a problem that you can solve, I promise you, but you're not going to solve it by asking the turnkey MRR fairy to drop leads in your lap.
That's right. I saw I saw an ad on TikTok. I know you guys have seen these ads too. And the guy leans into the camera. There's like smoke around him. He's like, what if I came into your business, took over content, created ads, found leads for you, generated sales? And then I commented and I kind of extended the like his tirade and managed payroll. You don't have to deal with employees anymore, and it would take care of taxes for you. And it's like basically like, wait, the responsibility and ownership of running a business goes to the business owner. And if you are we said this 2 weeks ago, congratulations. If you're a business owner, you just gave yourself a career in sales, at least for now, at least for a while, until you've got it and taken ownership of it. You can't expect to pass that hot potato off to somebody else and them to hold on to it. No, none of them are incentivized like you to hold on to that. So the work that you avoid, be honest with yourself about it, take ownership of it, and begin to do something always. Gentlemen, this has been really, really fun for me. Hopefully is meaningful for everybody else. We're going to transition here at literally 30 minutes into our conversation. So this is a good transition time. Oh no, Eddie, you just joined, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, but we owe it to Phil. I know you were the one who asked this question 2 weeks ago, but we're bringing Phil on because he's been patiently waiting. Phil, welcome. Go ahead and introduce yourself briefly. And I know you've been hanging out in the backstage listening to this conversation. Love to hear any like closing thoughts or like observations you have, because you've been very much embedded in the MSP space for a good long while now. And then I want to hear your specific question.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. Thanks for having me. I appreciate hanging out in the green room back here. I call myself a reformed MSP CEO, and I built the business and exited, and then took a little time off. Now I'm back in the game. And part of the reentry here is to better understand where, and I really appreciate what you guys said about you got to own it. You got to decide, am I going to be the technical leader of my team, and that's it, and I don't want to get my hands dirty and this other stuff, or I'm actually going to go and do the hard work and figure out how to turn this into something that's not based upon hopes and dreams and wishes, but actual reality and concrete steps I can take to solving the problem. The big question I have for you guys is, how have you seen this change over, say, the last, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years, 3-4 years, where we've had, and I totally appreciate the idea of that you can't just call somebody and they're going to have their steak ready on the grill for you, right? That's not going to happen. It's a great barbecue if I could go when they do that, right? It's a great cookout if I can go there, right? But it's not going to happen usually. But how's it any different today when it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago? And where does it kind of plug into that stream of, it's all kind of blurred, business development, marketing, sales, and that continuum today. So because I feel like it's not like a siloed piece of what you do, right? I mean, you can't be like, okay, here, you're a hunter and go do that. Robert, back to your point about the gardening and, farming kind of concept. Where do you see it in that stream? Where would someone who's kind of re-entering this now and say, oh, hey guys, re-educate me, train me again about where this marketplace is in 2025 and going to 2026? Because there's a lot of noise out there. So I'll
do you mind if I jump straight on this one? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't mind. Phil, thank you so much for your question. I'm going to kick you backstage, and feel free to continue watching over on LinkedIn. And if you want to reiterate your question, drop it in the chat on LinkedIn. It helps juice the algorithm, and we appreciate that always. But we're going to discuss this now. Robert, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for letting me jump in on this one, because I put a lot of thought into this specifically. And there's 2 things that I think have changed in the last 5 years. First of all, the MSP space is now 20 years old. Like, when you first started doing this in 2004, you could be like, hey, what if I could, show you how you don't get charged for help desk, per use or something like that. What if I could provide unlimited support for 1 fixed monthly fee? People are like, what? That was great, but we're past that now, way past that. And I think the challenge we have right now is that so many people have hired and fired 2, 3, 4, 5 MSPs. Like, we're not teaching people what MSPs are anymore. Now we're cleaning up the mess other people made. And what that means is the requirement and the effort that has to go into building trust is just 10x what it was 5 or 10 years ago. So that's the first thing I'm noticing, is that there is an increasing amount of responsibility and requirement for building trust. And then maybe a sub point of that is, if you're walking into a first time discovery meeting with a desire to ask deep pain questions to fully understand the prospect you're with, the appetite for allowing you to do that is incredibly low. Especially if you're the second or third or fourth MSP to the table. The last thing they want is deep pain questions as an opener. So you have to find a way to, in the very beginning, hey, you've given me your full attention. How can I provide value to you first before I get what I need, which is to understand if this is a good fit for my company and the salesy prospecting. And like, we still have to do all that. We still have to fully understand the prospect and what it is they need and how we can best serve them. But the appetite to go straight to that, I think people are just past that. We have to be able to prove in the first interaction, in the first 15 minutes, that hey, I just know more about this than you do, and I have something of value for you. If you just let me go through my process, you'll get it. They have to believe that like instantly. Otherwise, you're just a schmuck sales guy. Get out of the room. I met 5 guys just like you this week. And I think one of the biggest things we have to do in this current market is build that trust up front instead of just throughout. We also have to do it throughout the sales process. But there's this front-loaded trust that has to be built at the very beginning.
I agree. Trust is the linchpin in I would argue almost any sales situation, but absolutely in a services-based industry. And I don't know, Phil, if you're a gamer at all, or if anyone watching is familiar with the Fallout series, you'll recognize this quote. I'm bastardizing it for my own purposes, but war never changes. I say sales never changes. The way you sell, the tools you use, how you engage certain aspects of revenue operations or go-to market or whatever, that's changed a lot. But buyers, fundamentally, the reasons they buy never have changed. I would argue have never changed and never will. And the need for trust in the buying process has never not been true and will never be true. So I would caution any MSP who is looking at all these things, shiny objects right now with AI, saying, this is the widget, this is the gadget, this is the tool, it's going to build revenue in your business. I'm not saying there isn't a place for it in your strategy, but don't get distracted from what actually matters. Who's your customer? Why are they there? And Jeffrey, like, I love what you said earlier. It's like, hey, I literally say this when an SDR books a meeting for me. When I'm on a call with a prospect, I'll be like, hey, so 100% of Luis's time is spent convincing folks like you that you should talk to me. You'll be shocked to learn not many people say yes, but you did. Why? Why is your customer there? Why did they show up? Then everything else after the trust is built leads to the stake. So that's the short answer is I don't think it really has changed that much.
Yeah. Yeah, I would just triple stamp the double stamp. I mean, Robert nailed it. Scofa, you reinforced it. That was the biggest observation I detected in the midst of that sprint on the results we were having, is that the sales didn't change, the buying didn't change, but the market shifted. And by that, I mean, they'd already been burned once or twice or 3 times before by this magical solution that was labeled MSP. And so what happens in every market, it doesn't matter which one it is, you end up in a reality, whether you call it like red ocean, blue ocean, or you look at it through the lens of improvement offers or new vehicles, new opportunities. MSP at a particular point in time was a new opportunity offer, which is a significantly easier sale because you're not just comparing yourself on paper like we are now in the market on price or our people or our logo or our colors or our tools or our stack or our locale or our geo or any other bullshit that you lean into that doesn't work. It needs to be that new opportunity, right? Where MSP was this thing that was better than the in-house person. It was better than overseas. It was better than all of the available solutions. And so selling MSP was much easier when no one had tried it before because it was still seen as the solution to the problem that they were aware of. But then by the time you touch that once, twice, or 3 times, the definition is no longer there, right? Because you've touched that stove. And so really learning how to differentiate yourself in a way that matters to that buyer is one of the most necessary components about where the market sits now, because no one's out there looking for an MSP to actually buy MSP services. They just see that as the vehicle that currently sits in the market that someone told them to use. And maybe a couple of tactical questions that worked out really well in our meetings when we were doing that to warm up the conversation, to Robert's point, was rather than going straight into anything and like pushing for that big bite of the steak, it's more like, well, what results have you gotten so far? Let them unfold that. Then you ask questions that are naturally safe psychologically to them. So like, well, what do you love about the things that you have tried? Right? You're not asking them then for the problems or the issues. You're opening them up, and then you draw the gap of like, well, what hasn't quite been what you expected? Not where does your current provider fail? Where do they suck? What are you frustrated about? Why are you mad? It's like, what hasn't quite been what you expected? And now you're actually going to get the truth between what they want and what they expect and what you can or can't deliver. It's a great opening to that whole, if we can help you, here's how.
I love it. I love it. And while you were talking, Jeffrey, an idea came to me. And Robert, feel free to absolutely steal this for the dojo. But I would encourage, as an exercise, if you're an IT provider, an MSP business owner, you run sales at an MSP, you're in a selling role in any capacity, you're a BDR, either find a friend to do this with you or a customer who's super cool, or you could even literally just spin up ChatGPT and have a role play conversation with ChatGPT. But, define the profile of who you're talking to, like, and envision they're a prospect for you. Okay. And you're having a conversation, and the rules are you're not allowed one time in this initial discovery sales conversation to talk about IT, to talk about cybersecurity, to talk about AI, or the things that you do. The only goal is for you to ask meaningful questions and identify business pain and map it to hope for change, or fear of loss. And you're not allowed to talk about you at all. Because I think when you talk about touching the hot stove and selling MSP was a thing, and now people have touched it too many times. And then I come back over here and I say buyers haven't really changed, but those buyers have had experiences in the last 3 to 5 years. Mm-hmm. And so you come out and say, we're an MSP. They're like, we've done that shit. I don't know. Do I really want to do this again? One way to be different is be like, let's just talk about you first. Go ahead, Robert.
I'd just love to go for a full circle on this. There's a parallel here. The way that most MSPs feel about outbound sales and the way most companies feel about MSPs. Like everybody's looking for the easy button. Everybody just wants it to be fixed and off their plate, and I don't have to worry about it. I mean, there's some real similarities here, and I think it's very interesting. I wonder how much, and I'm suspecting there's some empathy we could play off of as we understand our prospects. They don't understand this. They don't want to do it. They don't want to pay attention to it. They would love it just to never be a thing they think about ever again. But we know that that's not how this works. Yeah. Not at the MSP level and not at the sales level. There's a level of investment in time and energy that has to be made for both our prospects and us as, MSPs trying to get new revenue that just is more than we want. And so helping our customers understand that and then making it as easy as possible to partner with us to find that solution is going to be a lot better than just trying to get the easy button and just say like, yeah, I'm an MSP, we'll take care of it. Pop, hit the button. No more worries, because we all know that that's not how a relationship thrives at an MSP, and it's probably not how it's going to work in sales either.
All right, so I know we have a hard stop coming up fairly quickly for Robert, and we're about out of time anyway. And I want to bring Eddie on here so we can kind of maybe put a nice bow on the business development, cold outreach conversation. And by the way, Phil, I think your question perfectly fits into the ethos of everything that we were already going to be talking about today. So thank you so much for your question. Hopefully you got some meaningful insight from this discussion. So we appreciate you asking. Before I bring Eddie on, if you're an MSP, IT business owner, or you're just a fan of the industry or a participant in the space, and you have a thought or opinion or a question, Queue us up for 2 weeks from now. So we won't actually be going live next Wednesday, the asterisk most Wednesdays. I'm actually going to be at an event myself next Wednesday. So we will be postponing and waiting another 2 weeks. So we'll see you like last week of October. But queue us up with something difficult to wrap our heads around, a challenge, a scenario, something you're wrestling with your MSP related to sales, business development, marketing, growth, revenue, whatever it may be, and let us wrestle with it. All right, Eddie, I'm bringing you on. I'm not sure at what point you joined the call and how much of our conversation addressing your statement 2 weeks ago you were able to soak up. But how have you been? Good to see you again.
Likewise, good to see everybody. Looks like I stirred up some comments as well.
Yes, you did.
Well, it's your post, man. I blame you for editing the whole thing. But anyways, yeah, I mean, I guess from an investment perspective, right? Outbound sales, I'm looking at it through my lens. Like, it doesn't work for me. Like, if anybody's just trying to constantly call me, like, I have this RoboKiller app that's filtering like 90% of my calls, and it's fantastic. And I expect them to leave a message. If they leave a message and it's somebody that I would like to talk to, I will respond. Emails, nothing can catch my eye. There was somebody that sent something that had I guess a current event that I was associated with. But again, it's okay. I'm not going to call them back and say, hey, let's do this. Let's join the webinar or whatever the case may be. I feel like people are just in their own space, and they feel more of, I'd rather work with somebody I know, or I call it apathy. It's like, or I'll just deal with the crap that my crappy nephew, he knows computers, but you know what? He's not doing a great job, but so far it's working. No one's complaining.
Yeah. All right.
Hey,
so
Ed,
Eddie,
can we? Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, let's go for
Go
you.
ahead.
Take it. Don't let me drive. This is your show, man.
I was going to say, we only have a little bit of time left. Eddie, you always show up like right towards the end with something really juicy. So I'm grateful for you, and also really frustrated because we could go on another hour. All right, Eddie, I'm going to move you backstage again. Thank you so much for bringing this up.
If I can we keep him here for just a second? Because do you mind, Eddie, doing a little being a little vulnerable about your own business? Is that okay?
100%.
Okay. Real quick, what's the worst part of your business right now?
It would be the sales process, where we have a gap on it.
Okay, let's take it out of sales though for a second. What's
Sure.
the second best? Second biggest problem you have at your MSP?
Second biggest problem, hiring.
Hiring. Okay, hiring what?
Hiring talent, hiring techs, SDRs, just the hiring process in itself.
Okay. Do you have an open position right now?
Yes.
Okay. What is it for?
We're looking for a tech. I don't know if it's going to be remote or local. We're still working through that because of budgets. Okay. And then we're hiring for hopefully an SDR / client success.
Got it. So here's a voicemail if you received right now.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Eddie, my name's Robert. I don't know if this is of interest to you, but there's a guy who lives 5 blocks from your office who is an accomplished SDR and just is looking for his next gig. He's leaving his MSP because he closed a big deal and then they didn't pay him. I don't know if that's valuable to you. Please call me back at phone number. Are you telling me you wouldn't respond to that voicemail?
I know where you're going with this. I maybe wouldn't. I may, not to throw off this whole thing. I probably will, but to be honest, like, I would have to put some thought into that if I want to call this back, because I don't know what that'll lead to.
Okay.
Honestly.
Okay.
But
totally.
I know where you're going with
but I
this.
just went from one voicemail to
Mm-hmm.
I just went from one voicemail to from I don't talk to salespeople on the phone to, well, I'd consider it. And the only difference is the bait I'm fishing with.
I like
if
it.
that makes sense.
The thing that I'd
So
reinforce
just food
there
for
too,
thought.
Robert,
I don't know if any of that's real, but
Yeah.
food for thought.
I can do it while Eddie's here too, because I think what you'd said was most people look at that outbound motion as an attention layer, right? Like, we need to go get attention so that people are aware of us. But what what Robert just hit on is what the advice I was going to offer is when you nail your messaging during outbound, what you actually get past is the consideration layer, right? So the attention is there, but then you get past consideration, which is almost me putting words in your mouth, Eddie, with like someone left a voicemail and yeah, I'll actually follow back up with that. Or I might answer that phone because that number, because I'll recall it or whatever the next time, right? And it seemed relevant. It's like attention, consideration, relevance, and then it's congruence, and like the whole thing just goes into the motion that's important to you, Eddie, not to me, is like what I'm trying to sell. And that's the piece that I think gets really missed. Those are the things that I learned when I was talking earlier about having to lean in and just understand what the hell was going on, because the magical MRR fairy wasn't dropping MRR in my lap. And those were the elements that I had to uncover and overcome.
Yeah. And as we wrap up, because we literally have to wrap up, one thing I want to make a pretty big distinction on for anybody listening and watching. Business development does not necessarily equal cold call, or does not necessarily equal cold email, does not necessarily equal LinkedIn DM, does not necessarily equal going to an event. So when we're talking about cold outreach, right, there's the difference between the tactic and the strategy. A cold call is a tactic. A LinkedIn direct message is a tactic. You can throw a lot of tactics at a bad prospect with the wrong bait and turn up nothing every time. So I think it's really important as for MSPs who get approached by providers and agencies and folks who are often peddling tactics and promising results to reframe it from the earlier conversation of taking ownership of understanding your buyer, the status quo they find themselves in, the future state that your business can take them to, the promised land. And between that status quo and future state, you can architect a message, the bait Jeffrey's talking about, that resonates and should resonate regardless of the tactic. The tactic is really just where your prospect is, there thou shalt also be, which should be their voicemail, should be their physical office, should be their LinkedIn presence, should be the associations they're members of, their country club, all of the above. And I think that's where a lot of MSPs fall down. They get distracted by the tactic and they deploy the tactic before they've understood the customer and understood how we're going to take them from here to there. And then the messaging is just like, well, we do IT good. They don't care. So start with understanding who, why, and where they want to go. And then you build how you take them there. And from there, your messaging comes. And the tactic is subservient to the strategy.
So may I ask a real quick question? I hope it doesn't open up any more cans of worms. But
all right, if you do open a can, it'll have to be. If you do open a can, we're gonna put some plastic wrap on it and put it in the fridge for 2 weeks from now. But go ahead, open the can, Eddie, because you opened the can 2 weeks ago and led to this really great conversation. So open another one.
Yeah, no, I like where everybody's going with this. I get it. I get it's the messaging. I get it's the timing. I get it's. Let's talk about your pain, Mr. Customer, right? I completely understand that. We've shifted. We're going to change our website based on that. So there it is right there. Should I then now, because of a limited budget, invest more in inbound? Should I put the billboard up about the message and just have people see it? And if they resonate with it, then, hey, I will jump in and I will call you, as opposed to me hiring somebody to just hammer out phones, cold calling, canvassing the whole neighborhood to just get no's and get deflated at the end. So that's my question. Did I open up a can of worms?
Great, Ken. I'm going to kick you back to the virtual studio. And Jeffrey, you and I can wrap up. I think Robert either had internet issues. I know he has a hard stop here coming up, so he may just have had to jump. But thank you, Eddie. Great observations. And I appreciate your vulnerability and sharing all that you have. All right, let's wrap up with some concluding thoughts here, Jeffrey, and we'll maybe plant a seed for 2 weeks from now when the MSP water cooler comes back. So take it away.
Yeah, another great question for him to end on, right? And trying to be concise enough to not like open my own can of worms there. Trying to be as helpful as possible. Specific to his question without maybe like opening that can. Really, the question was, do I focus on inbound or do I focus on outbound? And I think it's a different question that you ask, which is less about, to your point, Scofie, it's not the tactics so much as it's the commitment and the resolve to the direction, like the desired outcome. Because one of the things I see fail all the time, and I was guilty of it too until I figured it out, was I didn't have the fortitude or the commitment truly to like stave off the emotional response I had to the amount of capital I had to lay out until the results started coming back in. And it didn't matter which tactic it was, whether it was tele, whether it was SEO, whether it was email, whether it was social, billboards. We did those too. We did car wraps. We did all sorts of stuff. But if you're going from just traditional growth, which is inbound referral based growth at this point, and you're doing any form of I'm going to grow my business activity, you have to give yourself at least 6 to 9 months for that system that you put in place that you consistently and relentlessly pursued to start to produce ultimately the results that you're expecting. When you emotionally react to cutting that check month over month and you stop in month 2 and month 3 is where the gold was, it's literally that old meme of like quitting an inch before you hit the gold. That's and right. It invalidates all the other effort.
Yeah, and as we wrap up, I'm just going to say one final thing, and then we've got to go. Eddie, and I know specifically in your case, you're a partner of mine. You're a member of findmyitpartner.com, and I know that, I think you know this, but one of the things I offer my people is, and it's self-serving because I am working to understand the buyer of IT services. So I literally will interview your top 3 to 5 customers, like your five favorites. And what we do in that conversation is we reverse engineer the buying process of your ideal customer. So when you're wrestling with inbound or outbound or SEO or tactic, whichever one it might be, are you guessing? Are you pissing in the wind? Or are you using data to drive your decisions? If you've never asked your customers the question, hey, if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, how would you go about replacing me the next day? Because there you're going to uncover some really key insights about, and when I said earlier about where your prospect is, there thou shalt also be. Well, if you're focusing on a tactic where your prospect is not, if you're investing in a place where your buyer does not spend time, then don't be shocked when you come up empty every time. So a lot of you are taking like, well, cold calls and SEO and digital advertising on Facebook, or should it be on LinkedIn? Should it be on TikTok? Should it be on Reddit? Where should I spend my ad dollars? Should I get a billboard down the street? Should I wrap my car? None of it matters if you don't know where your customer is. So first of all, Eddie, I extend this offer to you personally. Let's get some time together. Let's map those top 5 clients you'd like me to interview, and we'll reverse engineer that, and that'll help inform some of your business development choices. And this is something, you don't need me for that. Any one of you who has customers can do this with your clients. Okay, Jeffrey, you're a guest 2 water coolers in a row, and I'm so thrilled that you joined us today. Phil and Eddie, who both had really great launch pads for some really good discussion today. Super grateful for you. If you spent time with us in the chat, watch this live, or you're watching the recording back later, we appreciate you. 2 weeks from now, we'll go live again. So I think that's the last week of October, the last Wednesday of October, the MSP water cooler. It'll be on LinkedIn. Mark your calendar, accept the invite when you show up, and we'll have some fun. Appreciate you all. We'll catch you at the next one.
See ya.